Guidebooks say it's a must-do when you visit New Zealand. Lonely Planets puts the Tongariro crossing as one of the world's top 10 walks, which is of course why there were maybe 200 or 300 up on the crossing yesterday, and why of course there's the need for walking guides to show them the sights and to make sure they don't get lost, and of course to keep them safe. Rob Franklin, thanks for joining us from Walking Legends. You were one of the guides up there on the mountain yesterday. Now, we earlier met your party, the documentary makers making the doco for Oz. I mean, they were just thrilled with the whole thing. But while they were sort of whooping and wowing and shooting it and thinking this is the greatest thing ever, your thoughts in your mind?
I must admit I was one out front of the camera whooping as well. I was pretty excited, but yeah, I sobered up pretty quickly and realised, having been on the track from Blue Lake down to Kiritahi and just a week before, and seen the carnage created by the August 6th with the big impact craters and big blocks of stone, 1 metre in diameter, and the holes in the heart, and towards the end, all the lahar damage. I knew that could potentially be quite a serious situation, so I sort of sobered up and started being the safety guy and started sending people back the way they'd come.
You had a couple of other colleagues up on the mountain as well with their walking potties. Were you able to contact them to find out what they were thinking, or whether they'd realised that it was time probably to make an exit?
Yeah, we got some indirect call back through office. We heard that they were all good.
And you met up with them later. Was there fear at all?
Oh, no doubt. They yeah, excitement all around. But I think having worked in this area and talked about it and thought about it, and learned all the stats of the other volcanoes, we realised that they get a lot bigger than that.
Yeah, this comes back to what you were saying about post-August eruption. You had no idea how big that eruption was going to be yesterday afternoon.
Nah, that's right.
So the nature of the track, even in the areas where you take the walkers, has changed dramatically since August?
Yeah, well, the doc spent a huge amount of money and resource getting that track nice and flat, and it's a really beautiful asset now for the country. And there's quite a few holes in it from that August 6th, and what you see pretty much is a 2 metre wide hole, about 1 metre deep. Looks like a big pig rooting, and it's all fresh soil. And if you look down just down the a bank a little bit further, you'll see the rock that
the
did
boulder
the damage.
which made the impact, and would wipe you out as soon as it got anywhere near you. Now, you obviously also do walking tours over Ruapehu, which is just a wee bit to the south of us here.
Yeah,
is that off limits at the moment as well?
It is. We're talking to a geologist up the top just before the eruption. He'd been up there yesterday morning taking gas samples, and due to the type of gas that's coming out means that down deep it's really, really hot, and that temperature is not being reflected in the water temperature in the lake. So that suggests there's a blockage somewhere along the way, and that's going to release either slowly or perhaps fast. So,
your thoughts about? You probably prefer were you to take off today to go back up here then, rather than over to Ruapehu. Ruapehu really is for all of you. You're quite happy just not to go there.
Yeah. We'll let that simmer down a bit, and they've got so much data on Ruapehu. They can predict quite well what's going to happen there. They're thinking probably weeks before a shift in the temperature or something gives way. Up here, of course, they don't have a lot of data. This is the second time in 100 years, so yeah, we're just working it out as we go here.
Has your job got better as a result of the volcanic activity?
Yeah, I think there's got to be a lot more interest in it, and yeah, certainly exciting for me.
Fantastic. Rob Franklin, thank you very much from Walking Legends.
Much meeting this morning to look at any possible signs that Mount Tongariro may erupt again. Yesterday's eruption, as Rawdon said, took them completely by surprise. They were concentrating on Mount Ruapehu, which has been rumbling away for several weeks. So volcanologist Brad Scott joins us now by phone. Good morning, Brad.
Yeah, good morning, Petra.
Can we talk about the unpredictability of the volcanoes? We were eyes on Ruapehu, and were there any signs that this eruption would take place?
In the big picture, yes, because Tongariro volcano in July went into a period of unrest. We notified people of the change in volcanic alert level, and since the eruptions that occurred in August, we've continually been reminding people that the volcano is still in unrest. There's enormous amounts of volcanic gas and steam coming out of the volcano on an almost daily basis. They're affecting communities as far away as Napier, Hastings, Martin, Manawatu area. The gas is getting down there. So by no means has the volcano gone back to sleep. but it still was a bit of a surprise yesterday afternoon for sure.
Okay, so the 6th of August, that eruption was quite significant. There was talk of rocks being thrown and changing the nature of the crater. This, not such a huge eruption. What are we looking at next? Is there a pattern that can be formed?
Possibly. If we take the historic precedent, the eruptions in the 1890s, they went on for several months, and this style of eruption occurred, every sort of few days to every few weeks over a period of 3 or 4 months, out to maybe 9 months. So we could be looking at a repeat of that, and that's probably the most likely scenario.
And Brad, can you tell me, with that sense of pattern, do you sense the pattern escalating in violence of eruption or de-escalating?
Yesterday's eruption was significantly smaller. August was what we call vent clearing, that the vent was blocked and had to open itself, so that was naturally more explosive. Now we've got a more open vent environment. It makes it easier for eruptions to occur. We can't get such high overpressure, and therefore the eruptions won't be as explosive or as large as August.
And can we talk also about the gas that you mentioned? The words that we've been using are gas and ash and steam and rocks. What is the nature of that gas?
The gases are coming off the molten material. The whole process has been driven by a new batch of molten material, what we call magma, is coming into the volcano. That magma is degassing. The primary gases are like CO2, SO2, and they're coming off in hundreds and several hundred tonnes per day of those gases have been derived.
So do people need to be concerned if they can smell sulphur or see or are affected by that gas or any ash that's falling?
It's not a direct threat. The only people who are slightly at threat are people with some sort of respiratory disposition. It can trigger a respiratory issue. So if you're maybe like an asthmatic or something, they can be affected. The general public, usually it's just a nuisance. You sort of smell it and, that's slightly irritating. But it's not really a health issue. Okay,
and finally, as we said, eyes were on Ruapehu. Is there an increased sense that something will happen in that volcano, or are eyes now more focused on Tongariro?
No, on both. In fact, yesterday I started my day out on the summit of Ruapehu. I was sampling the crater lake to get an update on the gas coming through the crater lake there. And then after we'd finished at Ruapehu, we went across to Tongariro, and I was actually working at Tongariro when it erupted. So we've got samples from yesterday going into the lab overnight, and we're hoping to update later today or tomorrow the Ruapehu situation. Yep. And that will be in parallel with any information we get from Tongariro.
And what are you hoping those gas samples will tell you?
It'll tell us whether Ruapehu is continuing to heat at depth, or if it's starting to cool down, or if it's just maintaining a status quo of the high temperatures that we've seen in the previous 2 samples.
If it's heating up, what does that mean?
It just means that the possibility of an eruption is increasing.
All right, Brad Scott, GNS Volcanologist, thanks for joining us.
This One News update is brought to you by the new ANZ.
The latest eruptions closed the Tongariro crossing, the lifeblood of the Central Plateau.
The world-renowned hike injects about $40 million annually into the local economy, and businesses fear any extended closure could mean the loss of precious tourist dollars. Lisa Owen spoke to local tour operators.
Step inside Stuart Barclay's office. You won't hear him complain about the view. It pays his wages. He's spent more than a decade guiding on the surrounding peaks, including Tongariro's Alpine Crossing.
I kind of feel that the mountain owns me, as it does all of us around here. We thrive, our livelihood is reliant on it.
Some of these hikers have been forced to take on other routes.
We wanted to do the Tongariro crossing, but obviously that's not going to happen now.
Normally, upwards of 80,000 trampers walk the Tongariro crossing each year, and this is peak season.
It's the equivalent of the Eiffel Tower, the Empire State Building.
But the mountain's most recent hiccup has shut down the route for now, and that means potential tourism dollars going up with this smoke.
No, it's not closed indefinitely. We will review the situation after 3 days.
A large-scale earthquake is basically unpredictable. We could be standing here now, and in 15 seconds' time we'll be sitting on the ground, having been shook from a large earthquake. Whereas with a volcano, it always puts its hand up we get some form of unrest.
One holiday park operator's already fielding cancellations. For some, only the famed crossing will do.
But today, unfortunately, there was 26 camper vans checked out, and tonight we haven't got anybody to check in yet.
Changed plans aside, for these hikers, the trip's still magical.
Not disappointed, really.
Every day's a wow.
Every day, yeah.
Every day has been a wow since we got here.
And that's what locals want the world to know. They have more than one magnificent mountain to visit in their backyard. Lisa Owen, One News.
Let's get to the important advice. The Tongariro crossing remains closed, but other walking tracks are open. All roads are open, but police are urging motorists to take extra care. And if you're driving, pull over to the side of the road if you want to view any activity. Normal flight operations are resuming after delays and cancellations at Taupo and Gisborne airports, but do check with your airline.
This One News update is brought to you by the new ANZ. One News update is brought to you by the new ANZ.
Mount Tongariro could erupt again without warning in just a matter of days.
That's according to scientists who say the risk of another sudden blast remains significantly high. Experts also agree activity in the Central Plateau could continue for months. They flew over Tongariro today to assess the dangers after the eruption at the Timari crater. Ruth Wynne-Williams was with them. She joins us now live with the latest. Ruth.
Wendy, looking at that landscape behind me is a constant reminder of just how active the Tongariro National Park really is. A massive amount of gas is continuing to spill from the side of that mountain, and at times you can really smell it. And scientists are saying that that new feature of this famous landscape could be around for some time yet. A day after it erupted, Tongariro is a mountain still very much awake.
We're looking at a number of vents out to our right here, and the emitting gases like sulphur dioxide, water vapour, hydrogen sulphide and things like that.
The north side surrounding Timari crater covered with a thick dump of sulphurous ash.
So when the eruption took place yesterday, most of it would have shot straight up, some of it would have been blown out to the east.
Time-lapse footage shows the plume, which shot around 4 kilometres into the air. A spectacular sight that lasted for less than 5 minutes.
From here you can see how powerful the eruption must have been. Ash has been ejected for about 200 metres from the crater. That ash is now being tested. The results of that testing will be back in around 3 days.
This eruption is being described as minor. No magma has been found to have reached the surface, but GNS scientists warn the mountain may not be finished yet.
The volcano is in a state of unrest, and in that state of unrest the volcano can erupt, and it can erupt without any warning.
Another eruption like this could occur within the week.
That unrest is going to continue for many weeks to many months.
The continuing priority for the Department of Conservation, keeping people out of the immediate danger area.
Outside the safety zone that's set up here, no reason for concern.
But plenty of evidence of what damage a force of nature like this can do, to serve as a warning for what still could come. GNS has described this eruption as a degassing, which basically means the mountain was quite simply letting off steam. Bigger magmatic eruptions have quite clear signals like earthquakes or other types of ground movement. In this case, there hasn't been any of that, so they do think that any further eruptions will be quite small, but GNS is monitoring the situation very closely.
All right, thanks for that, Ruth. Ruth Wynne-Williams in Tongariro. But scientists are also keeping a close eye on nearby Mount Ruapehu, where an eruption is looking increasingly likely. They've been collecting water samples from Ruapehu's crater lake. Pressure's been building inside the volcano for weeks, and the level of gases in the water will give scientists an idea of how close it might be to erupting.
But at the moment we're looking at the small end, just something small coming through the crater lake, affecting the crater lake or possibly the summit of the volcano.
Scientists say such a small eruption probably wouldn't cause a lahar or ash cloud like in the past. They also say activity on the Ruapehu isn't linked to the eruption at Tongariro.
This One News update is brought to you by the new ANZ.